Hi, it's Jen and Tammy back with Table Glitz for October, and we chose a cute pumpkin. And because I do have kids, I put the cute little jack-o'-lantern face on there. Yep. But if you want to not have the jack-o'-lantern face, leave it off.
Leave it off.
You could just have the cute little moon.
Yep.
And the face would be something you just leave off. And it's still an adorable little pumpkin with the green. So if you have not already subscribed to our YouTube channel, just do that now, because we always have new projects coming out, fun and innovative things. And of course, we love to do series. So this is part of a series. We went way back. I think we started this in January. There's a lot of those woolly mug rugs. Those are available on a download on our homepage. Yes. Shabby Fabrics at the very bottom of the homepage. Free downloads. Click that. You'll be able to download the woolly mug rug for the jack-o'-lantern. And you'll have 2 pages here. One is reverse refusible applique, and the other was basically the layout diagram.
The layout. Mm-hmm.
So reverse refusible applique, of course, we did use the fusible applique. I like putting everything down, fusing it down.
Stays there.
So it's not moving versus pinning things down or gluing things down.
Right.
As before, we have used trace 2 circles. One is on fusible webbing, and the other is on freezer paper. We've done that ahead of time, and we use our light box. I love, this is the wafer 1 from Daylight. They have 3 sizes, 1, 2, and 3. Mm-hmm. So depending on your size of your project, you typically use, if you're always doing smaller projects, the Daylight 1 may be just enough.
It's perfect.
But
I like
if you do a lot of medium-sized projects, probably the 2 or maybe even the 3. And what I love about these, Tammy, is we can just vary the light as we want to.
Yeah, isn't that beautiful?
It's really great. So I'm going to turn mine down just a little bit. I don't need it quite that bright. And when you turn it off and turn it back on, it remembers your setting.
It remembers.
Isn't that cool?
That is cool.
You don't have to reset it every time. I don't know. It's like a thermos. How does it know to keep
How does it know? Is it hot or cold?
So I'm using the light box to trace out not just my circle, but all of my other shapes as well onto fusible webbing. And again, for the circle, you'll also do one out of the freezer paper, roughly cut around. We'll go ahead and use our iron to whatever you consider the back side of your
wool. The back of the wool.
Yeah. And then we cut those shapes out to circles. At that point, you'd go ahead and place your applique shapes, and you'll be wanting to place those onto the one that has the freezer paper.
The freezer paper, yes.
So we're only going to be using the freezer paper to just get the shape cut out.
Right. It keeps that wool nice and soft and takes that fusible away from the back of this, so you're not stitching through another layer. Yeah,
you get enough to stitch through without adding the layer of fusible webbing.
Exactly.
So you're going to lay out all of your shapes so that they're onto your background, and at that point, Tammy's going to take us into the stitching. Now, for even more details, you can go back to our earlier videos from January and February, the woolly mug rug, and see that in greater detail if this is new to you.
Right, and it might be.
And I know Tammy has gone over the whip stitch and other things.
A lot of stitches.
A lot of stitches of how to get things just stitched down to the background. So
that's
just to keep things flowing for you who maybe are following along on the series, we won't cover that again. But if you're new, go ahead and go back to the earlier mug rug, and you'll see all of those other stitches. And Tammy takes you on a journey through the Creative Stitching book by Sue Spargo and teaches us lots of new stitching. A new stitch or 2 every video. Yeah. So definitely worth going back. So Tammy, on this particular one, I know we have a cute thread set.
That is cute. Yes.
I know the black is extra because each time we are doing the edge.
Yes.
And this should probably be enough to do probably the whole series.
I'll get the whole series out of that. So
yes. That's why it's a separate purchase.
So it's a separate purchase.
So take us through these cool stitches. Okay. I see some stuff.
Isn't this cool?
I want to see what this is all about.
I love the glitzy thread. So I'm using the Dazzle thread. And I want you to see when I first take it off the spool and I can just drop this on the counter. You see how twisty it is?
Yeah, because it's wound around. It's pretty tight.
It's pretty tight on there. So that's why I use the Thread Magic. And I am just going to run this thread through this Thread Magic, and it just takes that twist out of it. It just makes it behave. See, now when I drop it, it doesn't spin up in a circle like the other one did.
Gotcha.
This will last a long time too. This is nice stuff. All right, the other thing, another one of my favorite notions is the Clover Needle Threader. I love this thing. I'm using a Sue Spargo Milner size 1 needle. With this bigger thread, you definitely need a bigger needle. You need to make a bigger hole. But this creates a giant hole right here for you to thread your thread through, and it's just so easy.
I know with the thread that has the metallic component to it, like this, there is more going on trying to get it through the eye of the needle.
There is. So you can see my tail is all frayed out.
Yep.
So you're trying to thread this through that little tiny eye. It can be difficult.
That makes that so you can jump right into the project.
It's awesome.
I know we're going to use the friction pen to draw on our shape.
Yep.
And that's where, again, you can just be referring to your diagram for where,
Yeah,
obviously
for what
here
we're
you're just
doing.
going to
Yeah.
eyeball that, or you could use some kind of white marking tool. But
If you
here,
wanted to, yes.
you could mark that on there.
So I'm
or
gonna,
just-
you
Okay.
can mark the center just to give yourself a center on here, just so you have kind of a general guide, just like that. Okay, so now let's
Fantastic.
start. The stitch I used on this is called the Thorn stitch. It's on page 84 in this book.
Okay.
All right, so to start this stitch, we are going to come up at the very base right here. And I'm going to leave this big long tail to come down over here. Okay?
Really?
And then I come back up here and start. So sometimes it's nice to have this guide that you just can kind of keep your eye on and make sure that this is following the line. All right? I like that. Okay? All right, so we're going to come up here. We're going to go down at the top because I want to take that down. I want this anchored in here. Like this.
Guys,
Okay?
I'm
Isn't this cool?
I'm gonna tell you right now, and I told you in the last video, I don't let Tammy. I make sure I'm deliberately absent out of the sewing room.
That's right.
When she's
She
picking the
does.
stitches and doing it, because I want to be surprised like you are.
Surprise! What
I was
is she
expecting.
doing?
You know what I was expecting is you to back stitch that in and then
no.
hop over it.
Nope, we're going to
So,
hop over it like this. See?
there you go.
All done differently. So I'm
Okay.
going to start on the edge like this. I'm going to come up. And now I'm going to come down about the size of my X. And so my first X I did fairly small. It was probably 1/4 inch. And I'm going to take this down and back up. So you can see how I am on here. I
Yeah.
think Kevin can see that on the video there. So I'm underneath my stitch. I'm going to pull this through. See how it grabs that? It just grabbed my thread right there. Now I'm going to finish my X, and I'm going to pop it back up here for my other arm. There it is. And then I'm just going to drop down. I'm going to take my top stitch wide. So I'm going to come all the way out. Okay. Now I'm going to come down and I'm going to take another 1/4 inch stitch, just a little one, divot right here. Back under.
Wow.
I grabbed it again.
It's really interesting
And
how
it
you
comes
went
up here.
wide, but by the time you bring it back over, it's where it's supposed to be.
See that?
You have to go wider than you think you should.
Right, a little wider. Isn't that cool?
That is adorable.
So it just goes right down the line. You're just going to keep on going, and this line will help keep this thread exactly where you want it to keep it.
Isn't that cute?
Okay. That's fun. Okay, so now let's do the star stitch. Okay, and that we did over here, and the star stitch is on page 170 in the book.
Okay.
Okay, now you can draw this on with chalk. You can.
Or you could wing
I'm
this one.
just going to
What
go
would you,
for it.
You'd go for
I'm
it?
going
Okay.
to go for
What
it.
would you,
You
is that
know
what
me
you'd
by now.
recommend?
I just go
Just
for
go
it,
for
you
it?
guys. Yeah,
Okay.
just go for it. Just go for it. You know, basically where it is. So we're going to make our first stitch straight up and down. And now I'm going to make a cross. So I'm going to come up at, what would that be, 9 o'clock and over to 3 o'clock?
That a girl.
Is that the way that'd work?
Yes,
yeah?
it
Let's
is.
pretend it's a clock face. That'll work. Okay. Now I'm going to come up here on my X spokes, but I'm going to make them a little bit wider. So I'm deliberately going a little bit
Oh.
wider. You don't really notice that I did that, but it just helps so
I
that
see
it kind of flares it out a little bit.
Right.
Okay. So you're going to come out and back down. And then your last stitch, your last arm is here. Okay. Then I'm going to take one more stitch in this. You see how in the center all these threads are just kind of loose and they're just kind of hanging out.
Yes.
They move around a little. I want to secure all those stitches because I don't want them to move around. I want them to stay right where I told them to stay.
Be the boss of your
Be
thread.
the boss of your thread, Jen. That's right. You knew I was going to say that,
I
didn't
knew
you?
this was
you
coming.
You knew that was coming. That's my saying. Be the boss of
Yeah.
your thread.
She's told me be the
Okay?
boss of your
You gotta
fabric,
be
be
the
boss
boss
of your
here.
sewing machine.
You are the boss. You are the boss. So I'm just going to take a little stitch there. And that just secures that center and it makes those stitches behave and stay right where they need to stay.
Nice.
Isn't that fun?
That is so cool.
I love that. The last stitch I did was a chain stitch. I love the way this stitch just outlines
I
that
do
pumpkin.
too.
I think it's
It's just
one of my
adorable.
favorite
Yep.
stitches. Yeah,
It consistently is one of my favorites.
it is. It is. And so then when you're finished, you're going to take your project. We're going to turn it upside down. And we're going to take our not the freezer paper. Now we're going to use the fusible web one, like this. We're going to put this down, press it with an iron.
Yep.
And I keep the wool side down on a wool pressing mat, and that doesn't crush my stitches or my wool applique. Press it, and then we're going to do a blanket stitch all around the outside with the black thread, and you're done.
So just for them, if they're just joining us, that favorite stitch we love out of the orange.
Oh, the chain stitch?
Do you mind
want me
doing
to see
just
that?
a couple of
No,
those?
No, not at all.
Just a couple.
Sure,
Because
I can do that.
it is one of my favorite
It
stitches.
is. It's on page 169
Okay.
in the book.
So let's just, I know we did that on the previous one, the Woolly Mug Rug Schoolhouse. I think we did the frame, right,
I
of
did
the door.
School. I did the,
Or
the door.
The door. So,
I did the door.
but just because I love this stitch and I love watching you actually do it, it's so fluid for you to do it.
you see how this thread can be unruly. Where is my...
And I'm just going to trim that.
Then give me a
and
clip.
then using that definitely helps. There we go.
Yeah, this will make this thread behave itself.
There we go.
There we go. Yeah, you just got to be the boss of your thread, right? Okay. There we go. All right.
Okay, so show us the super cool stitch.
There's my knot. All right, so I'm going to come up right here on my edge, right next to my applique, and I'm going to keep my thread going to my right. I'm going to come back right where I was.
Where you came up?
Right where I came up, yep. Put my needle up and I go ahead about 1/4 of an inch.
Okay.
I'm going to go counterclockwise.
That's right. I remember
It's
this
the
stitch.
counterclockwise.
Yes.
And so when I have my little loop, I can see my thread is coming out of the middle of it. I go back in right there because I want these all to join together,
Right.
right? Like a chain. There we go. Just like that.
Fantastic. Show me one more time.
Okay. Comes up.
And then you go that
Go
way.
Counterclockwise.
Gotcha.
Yep, counterclockwise.
And up.
And right through.
And then to finish it, you just kind of go to
Just
the back.
take it down to
and
the back. Yep,
Perfect.
just take it down to the back.
Thank you. I
Okay.
know I've seen you
You're
do this a
welcome.
lot.
I know,
you
it's
guys
fun.
have too.
I love it.
And then just like she said, fusible goes on the back, irons
Yep.
together, or a blanket stitch the
Blanket
edge.
stitch it. Yep, blanket stitch together.
Okay.
And ta-da!
So we'll see you for the
We're
Woolly
done.
Mug Rug for
Yep.
November.
For November.
We're moving
Yeah.
right along.
We
Thanks
are.
for joining us.
Bye-bye.
You ready?
This one's mine. This one is yours if you're tracing.
Sure.
Okay.
Hi, it's Chen. Wow.
Oh, sure. Cheat sheet.